so happy to have her here and talk about all the things that she's been doing and working on and working with individuals on because it really focuses on what we all need right now, which is action over avoidance, right? So I'll just leave it there. That's my little teaser for this episode. But we're going to backtrack. I'm going to introduce Katie in just a moment. She's going to share her story. We'll go through the journey. And when I tell you that this is going to be a powerful episode, if you can download it, save it, because you're going to want to listen again. If you're driving, just listen. Don't worry about taking notes. It will be here. We'll go through all the things. But with that, I introduce you all to Katie. So Katie, thank you so much for being on the show. So happy to have you here. Will you please introduce yourself to our guests so they know who you are and what you do?
100%. So, hi everyone. I am so excited to be here. My name is Katie Maris, and I am, gosh, you could give me so many titles. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a entrepreneur. I am a speaker. I am a best-selling author.
All the things.
I am all the things. I'm all the things. I am also a domestic abuse survivor.
Mhm.
And with that, I have had the most trying times of my life happen in a way that I don't, sorry, I feel bad. Do
No.
you edit? Okay,
Yeah,
because I
they'll
feel
edit that one,
terrible.
but yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we could just
I had to find a space that
yeah,
allowed me a
no
little bit of
worries.
quiet time. Sorry about that. So I am, as I mentioned, a domestic abuse survivor, and in the darkest moment of my life, I had to face the fact that I was either going to sink or swim.
Yeah.
So, my abuser discarded me, stole $500,000.
Mm.
He basically froze my accounts, told me to go sell my body for groceries. And I had given up my entire career to run his businesses, invest in his businesses. We had 7 children all together,
Mhm.
and so I was mom, and I walked
Yeah.
away from everything that I had built. And unfortunately, I I was faced with the moment of how the heck am I going to keep a roof over my head? How
Right.
am I going to keep food on the table for my 3 kids?
Mm.
How am I was terrified. I didn't know how I was going to reinvigorate my career. I didn't even know what step to take. And for 4 days after he discarded me, I cried. I
Yeah.
begged. I did
Yeah.
what was comfortable.
Mhm.
I did what I knew best, and that was to basically lie to myself that this is where I was supposed to be, that this is what I was worth, and I had to
Right.
go back because I didn't know how I was going to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And on day 4, I was in a fetal position,
Mm.
crying, sobbing, and my daughter came down the stairs, and I felt this little tap, on my shoulder,
Yeah.
and she sat down next to me and she held me.
Mm.
And then she looked at me, and she took my face in her little hands and said, "Mom, you are so strong.
Mm.
You are stronger than you think. Please don't go back. We need you." And it was in that moment that I knew I had to stop negotiating with
Mm.
my future self.
Mhm.
I had to stop negotiating with my worth. I had to stop negotiating with my safety. I had to stop negotiating with my kids' safety. I had to stop negotiating for comfort.
Right.
The perceived lie of comfort.
Right.
And that's where a lot of us get stuck, is in comfort. We think
Mhm.
that the way life is okay, and that's all there is. So we're comfortable, so we're going to keep doing the same dang thing over and over and over again. And in
Right.
that moment, I had to take control of my life and make now non-negotiable.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so I got up and I did the things I didn't feel like doing. I brushed my teeth.
Right.
I ate a meal. I got out of bed. I drove my kids to school. I sent resumes out, holding my breath, hoping that I would get a response.
Mm.
I asked for help. I had to go to my sister. I had no money. I, sold my engagement ring to keep the roof over my head.
Right.
It even got to a point where I had to pack up my home into a trailer
Mhm.
and go to my children's father and say, "Hey, you have to take them for a month. I don't have a place to live. I can't afford rent."
Yeah.
I had to make the cold calls, send the cold emails.
Yeah.
And in every
Mhm.
single moment, I had to stop negotiating with my future self because that comfort that I once felt was a lie.
Right.
And so I did. I dared to do differently. And
Mm.
I quickly rebuilt my career because my I stopped avoiding the growth. I stopped avoiding the things that needed to change. I stopped
Right.
avoiding looking at myself in the mirror.
Oh gosh. That is so much and so powerful. And I just want to pause for a moment and say thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Thank you so much because I know that's not easy. And I know, you know, I can see how openly and beautifully vulnerable you are with that story and sharing it, and how much grace almost you have for that self who was seated
Hmm.
in that fetal position, crying, shaking, probably gasping for breath, being like, what am I going to do?
Hmm.
And gosh, I think that's probably number one that I heard here is that you have to, the way you speak about that story and that journey and that self is with almost compassion and almost as if you were talking about a dearest friend or a child who went through this and was like, I did this and it was hard. But it's not, I don't hear anything there of shame or guilt or, and I love that. And for anybody listening, that doesn't belong in these stories, right? We've got to let first those two, they are a part of us. We need to let them come in. We need to feel them. We need to recognize them. We need to honor them, give them a safe space to feel. And then we need to let them go. Let them be as they should be and not carrying the burden of whatever it was in our past. And I know
Hmm.
for those listening, this story, you've heard me say it before when I've been sharing my story in the closet. It was the closet or the bathroom. You take your pick. Because it was one of them I was going to go to hide and cry, because that was my life. It's how I was living. And I would wipe off the tears before I went out for the kids to see me and be like, all right, mommy's okay. We can do this. And then we'll figure that out. And, we'll just try to mitigate the yelling going on in the house and this and that. And I could feel it so much because we're all intertwined in these stories. So everybody listening, we're here together, right? This is a space that we're holding for each and every one of you who has a similar story, whatever you're going through, however you're feeling stuck. You said so much that I want to unpack, and I'm like, we only have an hour, so I'm going to start like bit by bit, and then other things are going to come to me, and then I know we're going to have a part two. But you said just being comfortable. And I read that we get based on our habits and our tendencies and the trauma that we might have been through in the past as children that we're not even aware of. We get so comfortable being uncomfortable in a very hyper state of our nervous system is at fight or flight. We're used to the inconsistencies. We're used to the verbal abuse. We get used to this. And whether you dealt with this in your childhood or not, there's different things that have gone on in your life where you came to a point where you're like, okay, this is just the way it is and it's okay. It's not okay. First of all and foremost, we're going to say that right now. Katie just told you she had to come to a point where she had to face it and say that it's not okay. This ability to be comfortable in a state that's so uncomfortable is something that we all live in. And it could be on a very small scale where we just feel that we are at this state at any moment. Anxiety's rising. The kids spill something all over the car. Your husband, your partner says something that ticks you off, and all of a sudden you went 0 to 100. And that's the state you live in. So let's talk about it a little bit. When did you realize that you were living in this state, apart from what was happening, of just accepting it and being so uncomfortable, and you started to shift to be like, not okay. After your daughter tapped you on the shoulder and she's like, no, mom, we're not doing this anymore. You know?
Gosh, that there's a lot there to answer that
Yeah.
question because instinctually I knew about a year into the relationship, eight,
Hmm.
9 months into the relationship. So because I'm an author,
Yeah.
I journal a lot, and
Yes.
so I actually have the entire relationship journaled. I have
Mm.
one journal per year that I
Mm.
was in that relationship, and
Gosh.
when I read back on my journals, because that was part of my healing, that was part of dropping the shame, that was part of giving myself grace, was to remind myself what I survived, to
Hmm.
remind myself that I, was in that fight or flight for so many years.
Right.
So I can pinpoint the day where I knew it wasn't
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
but I didn't, it was so comfortable at that moment, like the uncomfort, the fight or
Hmm.
flight. And he had done such a good job at convincing me that it was my fault, that
Hmm.
it was me, that the gaslighting was on fire. It was out of
Right.
this world, that I just felt like, well, this is the way life is going to be, and this
Right.
is what I deserve. And I lived like that for 3 more years,
Mm.
and it
And those,
escalated.
oh, I bet. And those journals, so I also journal, and that's going to be one of the key takeaways for everybody listening. Grab a journal. I don't care if it's one of your kids' old
Yes.
composition books, whatever you have on hand, just start writing. It does not, you don't have to start really regimented at a time. It's every morning at this time, but I carry one with me in my purse. I have one that I can write down if I'm feeling something. I like carry it around with me with my favorite books. And I have it by the bed. I carry it downstairs, even if it's just a few words. But when I'm at my really the moments where I have to get things out, right? Because emotions are thoughts in motion. You got to move them through your body, go for a walk, write them down, hear them out loud. Same with your fears. Your fears are not so scary when you put them on paper and read them back to yourself. Now, in your head, right? Your thinking mind, your emotional brain, all of the different aspects can build this up into a narrative that's so scary that you're like, I'm comfortable. I got to stay here. What would happen if I left? What's the worst that could happen? I'm so scared of being on my own. I've got to find a job. I've got to, make money. And I'm not discounting that those are really serious
Well,
responsibilities.
I knew he would do what he did.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that he would take everything. I
Yeah.
knew that I'd
So
have to start
scary.
over. I knew, like, I just knew who he was, and I knew
Right.
he would do what he did. So I thought to myself, well, at least this way I have money. At least this way I have
Right.
a roof over my head. At least this way my kids are provided
Rationalize.
for. I rationalized my
Yeah.
comfort.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Gosh. And then you have
But
children. You have
oh,
children
three.
that
Yeah,
you,
I have three. Yeah.
right. And it's like, so I get that. And we all know the things that we do for our children, right? Because that's a true statement. I'm doing this. We tell ourselves that all the time. We stay in the relationship. We stay in the job. We do the things that we're just like, I need to do this for our children. And while it's a really real responsibility, and I, being a parent myself, there's so much that I do. But there's a fine line, I feel like, and I'd love to talk more about this, where it's your boundaries, right? What you want to cultivate in your life with intentional action, with decisive decisions, as you call it, which I love. And we start to cut corners. We're like, all right, I don't need to go to that class. I don't need to go to the gym. I don't need to do the meal plan. I don't need to do this. Like we give, 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 give. And I was just talking to my sister the other day, and I said, all I've heard from you all week is you pouring out. You've got nothing in the bottom of that cup, honey. I was like, I know there's nothing left. Tip it over and let me see any drop that's left in there, because all I hear is you pouring, and I don't hear any of the things that you're doing or pouring back into you. And this is for a relationship, for this or for that, or for, our children and this and that. And where do you think in the relationship? Because I imagine that started to happen, right? You start
Oh
compromising
yeah.
with yourself
Oh my
early.
gosh. I compromised with myself. I mean, like as I said, almost 8 months into the relationship, but to a year, I knew instinctually it was not okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in order for me to get to that point, when I was journaling about it, I can only imagine, and I'd have to really look back at my journals, but that I started to compromise with myself almost immediately in the
Mm,
relationship. And I did. I compromised not just with myself, I compromised with my kids, with my
yeah.
family, with my parenting time. I compromised, um, you know, with isolation, with giving up friendships, with,
Right.
again, compromising with my career, compromise with every aspect of me. I gave up. I
Mm,
compromised everything. And boundaries, they didn't
yeah,
exist. Are you
right.
kidding me? What was a boundary? I didn't
Right.
even, I didn't, no, there was
We
none
didn't
of that.
know. We didn't know I didn't know they so because I feel like to me, 41 and the boundaries, it seemed to be something of late that I've learned over the last 5 years. And I'm like, holy moly, you're telling me I could have had these a long time ago, but I wasn't ready and I wasn't taught.
Exactly.
They weren't embodied for me at a time or a place where I could learn them in that way. And so I said, well, I'm going to be darned if I don't teach boundaries to my children in ways that they learn now. And that's, my point is, we do these things for our children. And yes, it's a beautiful gift, but we have to pour from a full cup. We have to embody the things that they can learn that they can later embody for themselves. And I realize that now, right? Hindsight's 2020, but we're in the midst of it. And you don't know what boundaries are. You are totally depleted. And each time you compromise, and for everybody listening, I know we're all doing it in some way or another, but know that that chips away at you.
Oh my
It's
gosh, yes.
just chips and chips and chips
I
slowly
did.
to,
I was a shell of a
yeah,
human.
yeah, exactly. You look in the mirror and you don't recognize.
I wasn't home.
Yeah.
Like my body was
Yeah.
present, but I wasn't home.
Oh, such a
And
beautiful way of putting it. Yeah.
I, I have to, I'm so proud of my daughter. I have, as I said, I have three kids, but my oldest daughter, she's the one that taught me boundaries. She's the one
I
that
love that.
through her strength, at one
Yeah.
point in the relationship, she said, "Mom, if he comes here, I'm not coming to see you."
Mm,
Like she put at, she's young, not even a teenager yet. She said, "I will not put myself through this. And
right.
Mom, I love you, but," and that, because of her, I put my first boundary in place where I said,
Yep.
"Sorry, my kids are really important and they don't want you around."
Right.
Now, I still was very much tethered to the relationship, but
Hmm.
we lived in separate areas, so I was able to at least put that boundary in place. But that was guided by my daughter.
Yep. And we all have that. So we can all probably think back to a relationship in our life. If it was a woman you were dating or a man that you were dating where maybe you didn't have kids, that the friends or family are like, no, I don't want to hang out with them. I don't like them. I hope we probably all had that one or maybe two, or maybe it was even a situation with a long-term relationship or a marriage where you've lost friends. And it's hard because hindsight's 2020 and you don't see it when you're submerged into it. And that's where the journaling really helps. And I'll tell you what, I've gone back to some of my journals and I have just cried. And I didn't cry because I was upset. I cried because I was just felt so just compassion for that self that was sitting in that and compromising and chipping away till I was just a shell, as you said so eloquently, of a person that you look in the mirror and you don't recognize who's looking back on you. And talk about being uncomfortable in your body. Forget about weight gain, forget about inflammation, forget about it because it happens. It happens, it coincides with that because as you're compromising self, your body's getting so agitated and you're so imbalanced that you're putting on weight, your skin's breaking out, you can't sleep well because again, you're compromising who you are at home within yourself, you know? And it's gonna get you every time. And I know that there, people listening on the phone right now who haven't slept well in ages and don't talk to the friends that they used to and have lost relationships or struggling with this. And I want you to think back on those core values. And if you've never done the exercise before of just listing out what is at your core. Who are you? What's your identity? Let's name some boundaries, right? Let's go through and name some and start to really get to know yourself again. And I think that's probably what you had to start to do.
Well, yeah, so that's where I started. I started off with the six key principles that
Hmm.
I wasn't going to, like, it was my, when you go bowling, like your
Yes.
guardrails, like
Yep.
the little bumper rails,
Yes.
those were going to be my guardrails of life. So I came up
Love
with
it.
six principles and I
Mm.
measured every decision, every relationship, every date, every business
Yeah.
decision against these six principles. And if it wasn't right, if it didn't answer yes to all of them, it was an easy no. And that
Oh,
was one of the places I started was, well, how do I ensure I don't compromise and slip back into my old patterns?
right.
And that was the way, was to really look at myself in the mirror, own the part I played and say, how do I change this? What do I need to change about myself? And the six principles were how I kept myself on track.
I love that because it gives people structure in a really untethered position. Because if we think about it, let's go back to your story, right? The way that you told it, and I could picture you had goosebumps all over, you're starting again with, just getting to know yourself again. The material things have been stripped away. So comforts, right? Any kind of material and like a Maslow's chart, right, of just basic needs. You
I didn't
got
have
none
any
of
of it.
it. They're
None of it.
gone. They're gone. So for those who are listening who are scared about what's going to be taken away from them, you can do this. You can strip these things away. And because the most important thing in who you need and what you need to be centered and attached to is that self. Because if you chip away from it for the rest of your life, at the end of all this, when you take that last breath, you're going to feel like you didn't get to know yourself at all again and reconnect and honor who you truly are, and it just makes my heart sad. But when you take away and you're at, I like to call just the basic level, just like when you were born, right? Again, in finding yourself. I mean, those 6 pillars, I think those are probably, I would imagine, like your lifeline that you're holding on
Oh,
to.
100%.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I had a billionaire approach me not just months after all of
Yeah.
this, went down, and I was stripped away to nothing.
Right.
And I was up against my principles. So I had two
Yeah.
choices: the comfort of money, the comfort of security, the comfort of the things back in my life, the comfort of knowing that, he was going to give me a paycheck and he was going to employ me, but all I had to do was be there for him when I wasn't with my kids. So very much my
Right.
past relationship, but on steroids, right? So
Right.
I have that opportunity just
Yeah.
months after I've been discarded. And then I had my 6 principles.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Gosh.
was I going to do? And I went up against my 6 principles, and I looked at them and I said, no, I
Mm-hmm.
can't. Well, first of all, I know that I found God along
Yeah.
this journey in a big way. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, number one, so God's at the top of my principle list. Like,
Yeah.
would this be something that God would condone? And by going down that path, I would basically be telling God that I don't trust him, that he's not going to provide for me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a hard no for me. And he looked at me and he said, nobody has ever said no to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Wow.
well, let me be the
The
first one.
first.
Mm-hmm. But these 6 principles kept me on the straight and narrow. It kept me
Yeah.
believing in myself. It kept me out of the comfort that
Mm-hmm.
I have always known.
Oh, it's so powerful because what gets us in trouble, I think, right, is coming from a place of lack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we
Oh
fall
my
back,
gosh.
right? And
Yes.
you literally are saying that you had nothing. You're actually in a literal sense of lack,
Yeah.
but you have so much that's filling your cup when you're rebuilding.
Let me tell you this. I was pruned down to nothing. I
Yeah,
had, just some furniture, some clothes on my back. I had
right.
more than half my belongings were gone. Uh, and I could fit literally my entire life, my entire home and everything into a 6 foot trailer. Like, I
Mhm.
had nothing.
Right.
I was my happiest with
Mm-hmm.
nothing
Mm. Yeah.
because I found myself. I came back home to me. I stopped negotiating
Right.
with my greatness. And sometimes that comfort, the material things, the material experiences, we think that's
Right.
what's going to bring us happiness. But happiness, joy, it's an inside job.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for what has happened for me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe any of this happened to me. And if I took a 30-second, took you, bird's eye view, 30,000 feet in the air, and I'll take 30 seconds to tell you my entire life. My parents were addicts. I raised my brother and sister. I almost died at the age of 26 when I buried my children. I was in a coma for 4 days after that. I had a
Yeah.
less than stellar marriage, finally got divorced, thought I found Prince Charming, was
Right.
abused physically, over 18 accounts of physical assault,
Mm.
broken bones, stranglings, fractured spines, physical, mental, emotional, sexual assault, then to be pruned down to nothing.
Right.
At 40 years old, nothing. And it was in that pruning that I found myself. It was in that pruning where I found happiness. It was in that pruning where I stopped negotiating.
Right.
And started taking action on living my greatness.
Right. And living as you, as who you were
Yes.
meant to be.
Yes.
Right. On the journey that we're on the journey that we are all on. And to those listening, I'm sure comparable stories are this and that, or in a relationship right now where they are compromising self, who they know they truly are every day when they walk in for one reason, whether it's abuse or alcohol or this or cheating or this or that, whatever it might be, or in any sort of way. It doesn't have to be a relationship where you know you're compromising self each time, or even if you don't know that it's a compromising of who you truly are, you feel it at your core that something's just not right. And you're like, it's okay, it's just the way life is. But you've gotten wrapped up in the idea that you need these things. You need
Every
you.
single human listening right now has a part of their life that they cannot stand, that weighs heavy on their heart, that they wish was different. Every one of you listening has this.
Right.
You don't dare, though, to look in the mirror and own the fact that you've played a part to be where you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you think you need, it's a someday, right? Someday I'll have this, someday I'll be happy when when I have A, B, C, D. The reality is, every one of you listening has the opportunity to have that greatness and have that fulfilled life if you so choose.
Yeah.
And you don't need all the things to have it.
You don't.
You just need to choose, and you need to act, and you need to, I keep going back to negotiating because that's all it is. It's a war between you and your mind, and no one else.
Ah, that's so powerful. It's you. You're the only limit that you have on yourself. You've put these limitations. You are in one and only control and responsible for you. And you need to do the work, and you need to look at the things, because nothing's going to change if it doesn't change. And the first step is awareness. Just like you said, when you knew, when you were going back at the journals and you knew then that you were compromising and it wasn't comfortable, and you might not have been ready to make a change there, but you were aware of it. And that awareness is the first step.
Well, it is. And then it's owning it. So, I mean,
Yes.
and anyone who is in an abusive relationship, I say this with, and it's 1 in 4 women. So it's a lot of women, and 77% of women stay silent. So I say this with the biggest heart and the most grace and love. I went back 3 times. There was a point in this relationship, I chose it. I chose the abuse. Because it felt most comfortable, because of my fear, because of all the excuses that we make up as to why we can or cannot do something.
Right.
But we all choose and actively choose every day where we are.
Yeah. And to stay.
Every single day. And we do, to stay, whether it's in the relationship or in a bad relationship, in a bad professional situation, not raising your hand. So ladies out there, women only raise their hand when they feel 100% qualified. A man will raise his hand when he feels 60% qualified. So whether you didn't raise your hand or not, that's a choice. Whether you wake up in the mirror and look at yourself in the morning and say something positive or negative about yourself, that's a choice. Whether you look for the good versus the bad, that is a choice. Whether you, I had a client that I was working with where she wanted to, better her, her health and eating. And she's chose to grab the chips. And seems silly, but she chose to grab the chips rather than the grapes because it took an extra 30 seconds to clean the grapes. And she's like, I didn't feel like it. Well, your greatness, your success is on the other side of I don't feel like it.
Yep. It's right
and
there.
You choose it. It's
waiting
like one
for you to claim
tiptoe
it.
over, like it's just waiting
right
for
there.
you. But we choose to stay where we are because we don't feel like it, because it's uncomfortable, because it's something new, because we don't believe in ourselves, and we sit in our excuses. And we think that life or success or greatness is when you take these big, huge pendulum swings.
Right.
But we know, and we don't need Newton here to describe what happens to a pendulum, right? It comes right back. When you make these huge leaps, it comes right back, and you end up not, 90% of humans don't achieve their goal. 92% of humans
90%.
don't keep up with their New Year's resolution. It's because it's this big pendulum
Yeah.
swing. So anyone listening, I want you to think of change as a pivot. I want you to pivot. When you stand, if it's a plane that's off course, for example, if they go 1 degree off course, they end up in an entirely new destination.
Right.
So instead of thinking swings, think tiny steps. Instead of leaps, think pivots.
Right.
And if you were to stand up and just walk forward, you would stay on the same path. But if you pivoted, if you just pivoted on your back heel 1 inch to the right and started walking, you'd be on a completely new trajectory.
Yeah.
So get up and brush your teeth. Get up and wash the grapes. Get up and do your gratitude. Get up and say your positive affirmations. Do the small things, because the small little steps, that's what amounts to having a non-negotiable life. It's making every single moment non-negotiable, because all we have is right now.
Right.
We don't have 5 minutes from now. We don't have, 5 minutes ago. We
And you don't
can't
wanna
feed
look
our
back.
history and our destiny at the same time. Like, we just can't.
And you don't want to look back and say it was just there on the cusp and I never went and I never grabbed it. I never stepped into it. And there's so many, put the boundaries in place now. If you, just like that, you're married, you have your routine, you're married, the kids are there, all the things work. Maybe the kids aren't there, but you have your routine with your partner. Maybe you're not married, and you have your routine, you can shift in that routine. It is never too late to say, these are boundaries. These are, the things that are non-negotiable for me. This is the self-care I'm going to put into place. These are the things I'm going to try. It's never too late to have those subtle shifts that, just like you said, can shift you so much over time that you're on a path to greatness, to all the things that you want to achieve. And more importantly, and the most important, you're honoring yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And what feels good at your core and how you live as your expression of self, not as this molded, subconscious version of you that walks around and you look in the mirror and you numb. Let's be honest. How many people, you nod your head if you're listening on the phone. How many times do you choose just to numb versus, as Katie said, facing the thing head on and say, this is not okay with me. It's not okay anymore. I'm not going to accept this as the status quo anymore. I'm not going to allow this be the thing that I live with anymore.
Well, and everyone is nodding, and I hope everyone listening is nodding, because you're lying to yourself if you're not.
Yeah.
Because we all have parts in our life.
Oh, totally.
Even me,
I do. I was like, yeah. I'm thinking about mine right now. I'm not going to share it with you, but I'm like, shoot. I was like, it's my comfort. And I'm going to tell you all something right now that hit me like a ton of bricks. We don't fear the unknown. We fear the known. We don't want that thing to happen to us again. Well, if you keep living in the same place with the same habits and patterns, I'm sorry, honey, but it's going to keep happening time and time again. We're going to kick ourselves. And I tell you that through true experience, because it's happened to me. And I'm like, why am I here again? Why is this happening again? And I'm like, oh, it's me. It's me. I have the same coping mechanism that shortcuts or numbing. And I'm like, no, Tessa, we're not doing this again. Nope. Don't need it. And coming from that place of abundance and faith, faith is it pulls you, it plucks you out of that pool of lack, like that muddy, mucky quicksand of lack where you're like, I got to just say yes. I got to go on the second date. I got to go on the third date. I got to stay in this relationship. I got to stay in this job because this is all I got. It's like we live in this place where it's like, I just need to make this work. It's almost like a desperation that you can sense versus being like, nah, there's a better plan out there for me. This is not for me,
But that's faith over fear.
Yes.
And they sit on opposite sides of the same coin. And you can't live in both. Like, you can't. I tried. I straddled faith and fear my entire life. For 40 freaking years, I straddled faith and fear. And I was never able to truly excel. I was never able to truly step into my greatness and find joy and peace and love and abundance and happiness because I didn't step into faith.
Right.
And not just faith, I mean, faith in a higher power, sure. I
Right.
mean, I'm very much a believer. And if you are a believer in the universe or God or any higher power,
Right.
whatever label you want to put on it, that's one type of faith.
Right.
The other type of faith is faith in you, that you can be your own safety net, that you do have what it takes, that you can choose a life of abundance. Like you can.
That honors
It's
who you
there for
are.
you. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I live a life now that is, I don't worry. I have zero lack. If I do worry, it's very important. This is a great lesson for you listening, is your emotions are an indication of your thoughts. So if you are feeling worry, anxiety, frustration, and you can become aware of it, because that's that's the theme here is the awareness piece. You can't
Right.
do anything without awareness. If you can become aware of it, then you can get curious about what you're thinking, because your thoughts dictate your emotions. It's not the other way around. And if you can get curious about what you're thinking, then in that moment, you have the ability to stop negotiating with yourself. You have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to stop the war between you and your mind, and you get to
Right.
rewrite your story.
Right. You can step into the gap right there and say, nope, we're good.
We're good.
We
Exactly.
can do
You get
this.
to,
Yes.
exactly. And so I now, and I'm human. So when I say I don't worry, I don't let worry, I should rephrase that. I don't let worry consume me anymore. Sure, I have feelings of worry. I have feelings of, insecurities or frustrations, or like I'm human. However, I have been able to come to a point where I get to manage my thoughts so well that worry
Right.
is fleeting.
Because you built a relationship with them, right? You
Mm-hmm.
build a comfort once you start really looking in the mirror. It's a courageous thing to do. It takes courage. And I know that. And it's when you start to really get comfortable with why and curious and compassionate with what's going on, you can start to take those with you. It's funny because in my life, fear's always going to be there. And in the face of it, I have faith. I have faith
Mm-hmm.
that I am capable, that I'm strong enough, that I'm looked out for, I'm cherished, and I'm loved. And that if I continue to honor who I am, through my values and self, and yes, I'll stumble, fall, and accept something because it's a moment of weakness or this and that. I'll be like, okay, well, that was silly because that's not for me, and I've got to keep going. And to that note, I will say, as long as you continue to accept what's not for you, you delay what is because it's out there and
Mm-hmm.
it seeks you
Mm-hmm.
too. And I guess on that point, I'd ask you, so let's say that we have people listening who have done it, who have walked away from the thing, who have faced it in the mirror, seen it head on, they're aware, they're doing the work, they become in tune with their values, and now they're in that place of rebuild, right? And it's hard. It's hard to sit there at that place because now you're untethered. You don't have any of the old,
Mm-hmm.
what you thought were comforts. You feel a little naked in a sense out there in the world, and it's like, okay, so when is this all going to fall into place? And we have to keep practicing that faith and that patience and keep saying yes to the things that align. But what would you tell them right now if they're sitting in that place and they have those moments of doubt that creep in or worry or, you know,
So, a couple of things. First is it's okay. Give yourself grace.
yeah.
Grace is everything. It is a gift that you can give to others and yourself. So don't feel shame and give yourself grace. Like breathe.
Yeah.
But I would say this: the way you see your world is the way you experience it. And in those moments, you have a choice to see the fear, see the pain, see the negativity, see the uphill climb you're trying to make and you can't seem to get there. Or you get to choose to see what you have right now and be grateful. Gratitude is non negotiable in any climb. And in my experience, when I had nothing and I was stripped away to nothing, I was most grateful for the nothing that I had. I was grateful for the warm cup of coffee. I was grateful
Yeah.
for the sun shining. I was grateful for the health of my kids. I was grateful that my sister bought me groceries. I was grateful for the fact that I had a car to still get to therapy. I was grateful that I found an outlet for therapy that was paid by the government. I just lived in gratitude. And so in those moments of anxiety and overwhelm, you're untethered, you don't know where your next step is going to be, grounding yourself in gratitude. And I want you to repeat this, even if you're in the car, you're in the shower, whatever you're doing, listening to this right now. What I see is up to me. What I see is up to me. And your world is shaped based off of what you see. So in those moments, you need to choose to see what you have instead of looking at everything and saying, what am I missing? What skills don't I have? Or what isn't there for me? Ask the question, like, what am I missing? Meaning, what am I not seeing that's there that can help me? What am I seeing that I already have that can propel me? What I see is up to me. And so if you don't have a morning routine and you're untethered, you've taken the steps, you're confronting yourself in the mirror, a morning and an evening routine is everything. It's a bookends to your day. It sets you, and I kind of picture it as an infinity loop, right? So you get up in the morning, you think good things, you see good things, and you go to bed and you think good things. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's easier to think good things and see good things. And it's this beautiful infinity loop. And in the middle, in the cross section, you have joy and peace and harmony because you're being grateful all the time. You're seeing the good in people. You're seeing the good in every situation. You're seeing abundance and not lack. And when you start to see abundance and not lack on a regular basis, when you get up in the morning and when you go to bed, then abundance is what you get.
So true. I love that so much because I know, I think back when I first had my daughter and I was going through a hard time, with my husband at the time, and we're struggling here and there. And it was the night that was always the hardest for me. And sometimes in different times in my life, through loss and this and that, it was always the loneliness. And that's where the doubt creeps in. That's where the fear creeps in. And let it, guys, the more that you try and push it down and just not address it and not see it and turn it into an exiled emotion, the bigger it's going to become. It's going to be the elephant in the room that you're not addressing, and it's going to manifest in different ways that it tries to protect you or habits that's not going to appeal to your future self. Let it come in, but then also have ideas and practices and habits in the morning and the evening, because those typically are the hardest times, that are going to propel you and lift you up so you can get curious about how you're feeling. But you also know you have this beautiful routine of making yourself the cup of tea, and we can share, both Katie and I in the coaching that we do can share so many different practices, those habits and patterns for success that you can start to implement. But I think about that beautiful infinity line that keeps going. And I love that I've never heard that said before. And I love that. Get really clear and strong on 1 to 2 things you do in the morning and the evening that are continuously setting you up, because the fear is going to creep in. It's going to. It's a part of it. But what you're starting to embody for your children, for your partners, for the people around you is incredible. They need it. You need it. We all need it. So keep going. You can do this without a doubt.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's in those moments that you feel like you can't go on are the moments that are going to teach you most about yourself. And it's going to reveal that you are actually far more capable than you give yourself credit for. I was coaching a 17-year-old and she came to me with 17-year-old problems. My boyfriend was liking people on Instagram, these girls and all the things. And I'm like being serious, semi going, oh my gosh, 17-year-old first world problems. That's amazing. But she then was like crying and what do I do? And I said, stop, write down 10 things you're grateful for right now. Just stop. And so she started writing down 10 things. She got to about thing number 5, where she was like, well, I'm at the gym and I'm proud of myself that I was able to ask this trainer how to meal prep. And then she just kept going on and she was laughing. And I said, hold on, wait just one moment. 5 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, you were crying. And because you focused on what you had, you are
Mm-hmm.
now laughing.
Yeah.
She goes, oh. And I'm like, if there is a method to my madness, if you focus on abundance, if you focus on what you do have,
Right.
you realize that in every moment, you have everything you need and want.
Mm-hmm.
As you're listening to this podcast, whether you're driving, whether you're drinking a coffee, at work, in this moment, you lack for nothing. You
Right.
have everything. And so when you bring that into perspective and you can be grateful for every single moment, and then every moment builds one on top of the other, all of a sudden, the worries, the fear of lack, the anxieties, the frustrations, they are less.
Right.
And they dwindle with time and they become fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start dreaming big and, your big visions. But yet it starts an abundant life, a beautiful, joyful life of ease and happiness and abundance is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a job that we have to realize that we are capable, and they talk about I am statements, you know, what is the, I'm losing the word, but the affirmations,
Yeah.
positive affirmations are all over the internet. You feel like a lot of folks feel like they're like, woo woo, do they really work?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they really work. When you
Right.
can look at yourself and see, again, the way you see your world is the way you experience it. So if you look at yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself you're dumb or not pretty or overweight,
Mm-hmm.
we're in an, I don't want, or I lack society, right? I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to have kids that don't listen. I
Right.
don't. Instead of saying, I want to be healthy. I'm working out. My kids are healthy. Again, looking for the good. We continuously ask for what we don't want
Right.
by the way we talk to ourselves. So the I
Mm-hmm.
am statements, and I do this with my daughters at night when they go to bed. I get up, and I write a positive I am statement on their mirrors. And so when they get up in the morning, that's the first thing they see is something positive about themselves. When we get in the car to drive to school, I ask them, what are you looking forward to most today? What are 10
Mm-hmm.
things you're grateful for? When I pick them up from school, I ask them, what was the best part of your day?
I love
Priming
that.
them to
Right.
constantly look for the good, because the reality
Right.
is good is all around you.
Right.
You just choose not to see it. You negotiate with your ease, your joy, your love, your happiness, because you choose to see lack
Yeah.
versus abundance. And so if there's anything you take away from this podcast today, I would hope that it is you carry a journal, yes, but it's focused on seeing the good.
Yes. I love that. And also you just said it again and you shared it earlier, negotiating, right? With all of those things, your happiness, your joy, your values, your life. Are you willing to negotiate with your life and how you're living it anymore? No, let's not. Let's not do that
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And let's start journaling about the ways that you are negotiating, how you're compromising and chipping away. And let's start to see, or even if you're not ready to have those conversations yet, write down what feels really uncomfortable in your life. And it's the one thing or two things or three things that you have avoided looking at up until this point. And let's just
Mm-hmm.
start to cultivate that awareness. I love all of this, Katie. We could talk for another hour. There's something I tell my kids all the time, which you made me think of. And I was like, honey, worrying is wishing for something you don't want to happen. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, so let's stop. And I'll tell her, I'm like, stop wishing that you want this to happen. Because again, guys, it's fear of the known. But if
Mm-hmm.
we break these patterns, if we break these habits, if we finally stop negotiating with our lives, we can start to take agency over them and imagine what can come in. And you are fully capable. You're strong enough. You have what you need. Your kids need you to do this. They need to see you with the beautiful boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
with the structure in place, with saying no to this isn't. Rebuild your life. You can do it if you need to. Trust
Mm-hmm.
Katie. She's been able to do it. Or
Yes.
even have the conversations with your partner. Sit down and start having this growth mindset and this dialogue. Because I'll tell you what, it will make your relationship so much stronger
Oh
than
my
it's
gosh, yes.
ever been, because we all have it. So you're now giving them a channel, a path to be able to face and see the things that maybe they haven't seen. Now, mind you, you can't force them to see it. You can only meet people where they are in their journey. But if you start to embody this and they see the changes in you, what a gift that would be to them. So don't be afraid of this too. I know you probably have more questions. An hour is never enough. So Katie, where can they find you if they want to do one-on-one coaching, if they want to know more about you? And guys, if you're driving, we'll link it up in the notes, but where's the best place?
Yeah, so I have two websites, katiemaris.com, but if you want one-on-one coaching, nowisnonnegotiable.com is where you
Love
want to
it.
be. You also can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, but at Katie Maris, right across the board.
Great.
Feel free to email me, katie@katiemaris.com.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. I truly am on a purpose-driven path. I will talk to everybody that comes
I love
across
it.
my board. You will all get time with me, and I won't ask for a dime because I really want to ensure that you are not negotiating with what could be and what you deserve to live. And if that conversation goes right, then we'll talk about, how we can help you, give you those steps further. But don't be afraid, reach out, make now non-negotiable, dare to do differently, one small pivot to have the life that you deserve.
And just like you say, it's action over avoidance. So do it now. Just do it. Go home, send the email to Katie, follow her, follow us, listen to this podcast, save it again. If you can't do it right now, and things like this have a tendency, it's energy, right? It's the energy that Katie and I are trying to put out to you all. So you can manifest and dream and we just want you to be happy at home in yourself. Right? And stop negotiating. So stop avoiding. Let's take action. Do it with somebody, right? Send this to a friend so they can do it with you. Say, I got you. We're going to do this together, because it's scary and it takes courage. Katie's got you. I've got you. We've all got each other. We're all just walking each other home, and you can do this. So Katie, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And guys, we'll link up everything in the notes and definitely get in touch with Katie. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.